right, so welcome to Money Mastery. Yay! This is going to be a very short class. I got my checkbook here. Just tell me how much you need, and we'll just write out. Okay. I thought we could start off with a little joke there. That was a very little joke. Okay. All right, so money mastery. So we're going to approach this over the next couple weeks by addressing, the two main problems. I mean, we've got the physiology of it, the mechanics of it. How do you mechanically fix sort of your problems? But really, a lot of it is more the psychological and emotional problems that have to do with, how we got to be in the state we're in terms of our finances, okay? I mean, what's the issue? What's the problem? Well, not enough money, right? You have not enough money for whatever, fill in the blank, for whatever it is that you want. There seems to be not enough money. You end up with more month at the end of the money. You have, struggles with, maybe you have enough money to pay your basic bills, but you never seem to have enough to get some of the enjoyable things that maybe you want in life. Whatever it is, you're here because money has become a challenge, either the way you're handling it or a lack thereof or both or something, okay? Now, it's no surprise that we end up in this place because, after all, you had taken so many classes in this in school and your parents taught you so well, and, well, none of that happened, right? I mean, incredibly, well, I guess it's not so incredible. We shouldn't be surprised that all of the most important things in our life we are not taught by anybody formally. Okay? I mean, you can get married without a formal training in that. You can have a baby without a formal training in that. You can go ahead and get all kinds of debts and bills and all kinds of things and no formal training in that. Nobody really teaches you how to go out and get a job or to be employed or any of those things. Okay, you're not taught anything that's your belief system is really not formal until you choose to go and involve yourself in an organized structure of some sort. I mean, really, these aspects of our lives are not taught. We're taught really important things like how to do long division, which I guess is important to some degree, but most of you will never use it ever again. Use your calculator. And even that, I don't think most of you have used a calculator in the last 30 years either. I mean, you just, don't do these things. But, the important things in life we seem to have to do on our own. And that's my first encouragement, all right? Before we kind of really get started is you just got to start by you have to start by owning your own education. And that education is not necessarily formal in school, because some of you are clearly older than regular school age. All of us are to whatever degree. And so we're thinking, well, I already finished school 30, 40 years ago. But no, school should be an ongoing thing. You need to learn about the things in life that you don't know, and you're going to have to find the sources and the instructors that you need for these things yourself. Okay, and that's part of why you're here, is that you're hoping that I'll be able to be helpful in getting you from where you are to where you want to go in the area of your finances, all right? So we're going to have a fun little beginning thing here. If you are familiar with this, please don't tell anybody sitting near you how this all works, but it's a metaphor for the whole problem. And so you can go to the slides. We'll go ahead and switch. There we go. This is the think outside the box test, okay? How many of you have heard the phrase think outside the box? Well, do you know where that came from? Okay, it came from a test that IBM used to give engineering applicants who wanted to work at IBM back in the 60s is when this started, 50s or 60s. And they used to give these tests, and it was called Think Outside the Box. So there is your challenge. So go ahead and try this on your paper. If you know how to do it, don't let anybody see it. But you're going to connect the dots with 4 straight lines without picking up your pen. Okay, they have to be 4 straight lines, and you're not going to pick up your pen or pencil. Okay, obviously, if you can pick up your pencil, you can do 3 straight lines and get all 3, any which way you want to do it, but you're needing 4 lines and not picking up your instrument of writing, whatever it is you're doing. Okay, that's why, Tommy, I wanted you to have paper, so you could do this. Okay, and I'll give you a minute or two to do this. And the reason that we're using this is a metaphor for the boxed-in thinking that we have, the problem, that you're in your life, okay, with dealing with money, but this could be anything. So go ahead and work on that just for a second, and I'll talk a little bit while you're doing that. Okay? So while you're doing that, you need to understand that what we're going to learn today, to some degree, is applicable to all of the issues you might have. Like maybe you have a weight loss issue and you want to deal with a diet problem, or maybe you're dealing with a health issue, maybe you're dealing with some social issues, maybe you're dealing with vertical issues. Whatever the issue is, the process is mostly the same. The mechanics might be a little different, okay? But the process is going to be very similar, okay? So just as you're going through this, understand that there's going to be a mindset that's similar for all these things. And we're going to work on those today. All right. How many of you have already given up? I would guess the ones that are staring at me and not at their paper. Anybody actually need more time because they still want to try to think they're going to figure this out? I don't know the answer either, so that was just a point of futility for you to all experience. Okay, we good? Ready to go? Okay, so let me explain the problem. And this is the same problem you have with almost all of the things in your life. You have a problem because you see a box. Just for even telling you that it's think outside the box, without even realizing it, I put the box in your head, and so you saw the box. And if you use 4 lines, you missed the dot in the middle. I mean, you can make the square. But you saw a box. Now, there is no box there. There's just a bunch of 9 dots. But you saw a box. And so in order to solve the problem, though, you have to actually go beyond the box. And that looks like this. You would draw a line and see the arrow going beyond the dots. You get a second line, goes through a few more dots. You got a third line going through a few more, and then those fourth line through all the last dots. Now, bear in mind, those 2 areas right there are outside the box. You can't connect them without going out beyond the box. And that's what IBM was looking for. They were looking for people that could think outside of what would be self-imposed or culturally imposed or any kind of other outside source imposing restrictions in your thinking, okay? And you're going to need to be creatively thinking outside whatever box you've been in. And you could turn the slides off at this point. So you've done what you've been doing for so long, okay? And it's gotten you to where you are. So let's talk about the psychology of all of this just for a minute. And how we view and think about most issues, including finance, money, work, whatever, okay? There's no difference, like I said, between that and health. Like, for example, if you want to lose weight, it's basically simple. You regulate what goes in your mouth and you move your body. Now, there's lots of ways you can regulate what goes in your mouth and lots of ways you can move your body, okay? Finance is the same thing. You can increase the amount of money you make, and there's lots of different ways you could do that, and you regulate what you spend. I mean, see, so it's not like it's like this ingenious, creative thing I'm going to teach you that solves all problems, but the simplicity of it that you go, oh, I can do this. It's not that complicated. I got to be able to I'll have to be a little creative about the kind of way I do this, but it's very simple. I'm going to regulate what I'm spending, and I'm going to maybe increase what I'm making. Okay? That's the way you handle any of the issues. All right? And so what we're going to do first is that we have to make sure that we're living in reality. Okay? Now, this is a challenge. I don't mean this to be tongue-in-cheek. I don't mean to be a wise guy. I don't mean to insult anybody. But almost none of us lives in reality, not fully. Because our experiences, our culture, and everything that we go through, where we live, when we live, who we interact with, all affect what I call the delusion bubble that we live in, okay? Or you can call it the filters that you see life through. And this all prevents you from seeing it completely clearly. Some aspects you may see very clearly, and some not so clearly at all, and every flavor in between, or every gradient in between, okay? So if you look at it like a grayscale, some things you see very white and very clear, and some things are very black and dark and you can't see. But there's a lot of shades in between that different areas of your life, you may be in those different shades. But what we want to make sure to do as we're going through all this is that we have to try to work on basically what I'll call them our delusion filters, okay? And so one of the best ways to do that is to go out there and try to gather information unfiltered so that you're not going to have to worry about those filtering things. And so first thing you need to do is you're going to have to understand and accept that you are, in every aspect of your life, this is a fact. Don't point the finger at anybody else. You are, in every aspect of your life, exactly where all of your beliefs, thoughts, decisions, actions, and habits have taken you. You have arrived exactly where everything you have thought, believed, and done has taken you. So don't feel bad, don't get depressed, because it is your fault. What do you want me to tell you? But be empowered to know that if you were to change your beliefs, thoughts, decisions, actions, habits, you could end up someplace different. Okay? This is to be empowering. But you have to first own how you got here. Okay? Again, you are exactly where all those things have taken you. Okay, you've learned through your experiences, to the people around you, through what was imposed on you to some degree or other, but you let them impose on you. You have learned and then made choices and made decisions and filled with certain beliefs that have led to the point where you are right now in your career, in your finances, etc. Okay? I mean, it could be simple things like somebody telling you, well, you'll never amount to anything. Or somebody saying, well, that's the most you can do. Or somebody saying, well, money's evil, though you don't want any money, so you then maybe avoided that, maybe not consciously, okay? But we've all been taught certain things that you don't own what they did, you own that you allowed it to be brought into you, okay? You didn't filter what you should have filtered, where before it came in, you could look at it, examine it, and decide whether or not you want to accept it, okay? Think of it like email now, right? You look at an email, you go, I can delete it, I can save it, I can respond to it. You have all kinds of choices. But you see, all these things that happen in your life, you forgot that you had choices along the way because maybe nobody ever told you did. And you just bought a bunch of stuff that, really you shouldn't have bought. You should not have received and taken in, okay? Now, so we're going to talk about, in those areas, congruence, okay? Congruence is agreement or harmony or compatibility, okay? And so when you look at these things, your desires, okay? I mean, this is all about what you want. I want something or I don't want something. Your desires must be congruent, okay? In other words, compatible, in harmony with, in agreement with your beliefs. Okay, if you want something, but in your beliefs it's wrong to have, you're not going to probably do what you need to do to get it. So your desires must be congruent with your beliefs, which also must then be congruent in harmony, agreement, or compatibility with your self-image. Well, I can never do that. I can't be rich. I can't see myself having a new car ever. I can't see myself, owning a house. I can't see myself, in a marriage or in a relationship. Whatever. I can't see myself losing the weight or gaining the weight or getting the health. Whatever it is, you can't see yourself. Your image is not there. You're not going to get there either. So you could believe, but have the wrong self-image. You have to also have a congruence with all of those things, your desires, which have to be congruent with your beliefs, also with your self-image, also have to be congruent then with your actions. No problem that you desire something, and that you even have beliefs that it's okay to have it, and that your self-image allows for you to have it. That's not a problem, but then you don't do anything. Or your actions are contrary to what's necessary to accomplish what you want. So there has to be a congruence between these things, okay? Now, if you can have desires, beliefs, self-image, and actions all in congruence, compatible, in agreement, in harmony, guess what? Then you can have what you desire. But that's what it takes. You have to have those things in harmony. I call it congruence, okay? In harmony, in a compatible mixture, an agreement to have a desire. So it's not enough to desire something, but to get to that desire happening, those other pieces have to be in place. Okay? Your beliefs, your self-image, your actions, all have to be in harmony. What you want Has to be in harmony then with your beliefs. So in other words, you want something, but you believe it's wrong to have it. Well, that's not going to work. So you have to want something. It's got to start off with a desire. If you don't want it, you're not going to ever do it. Okay, the number one reason, I've done a lot of research on this, by the way. The number one reason why people don't do most things is because they don't want to. Shocking, right? Okay? That is the number one reason. Okay, so you have to desire it first. I'm going to talk a little bit more about desire here in a minute. You want it. Okay, that's a desire. You want something. Or you don't want something. You can think of it as, I'm tired of being poor. I'm tired of struggling with paying my bills. I'm tired with the stress of, not being able to. So that's also a desire. I don't want to feel like this anymore. Okay? But then your belief that you can or can't have it, or that it's right or wrong to have it, these beliefs have to be congruent with that. And then you have to believe you can do it, and that it's okay for you to have that. Your self-image is, well, I can never do that. I can never accomplish that. Well, then it's never going to happen. Okay? I can't remember the exact quote, who quoted, said it, but basically it was maybe it was Ford or Edison. But the basic line goes that whether you believe you can or can't, you're right. If you believe you can't, then you can't. I'll use an example for some of you that may have watched some of these things back in the days when Mike Tyson was fighting, okay? But if you remember watching those fights, the ones that he won in, record head-spinning time, is because if you ever looked at the face of the people he was fighting, they had already lost before the bell rang. They had the fear in their face. They were scared to death. They knew they were about to get pummeled. Until a guy named Buster Douglas showed up, and he wasn't afraid. And he ended up winning. But the other guys, who knows if they could have won? They had lost before they ever set one foot in the ring. You could see it all over their face. So whether you believe you can or can't, you're right. Well, I know I can't do it. Well, then you're right, you can't. Really? Well, if you believed you could too. Because that belief has to be congruent with what you want, with all the other elements together. Okay? And so let's understand that. I want to be out of debt. I desire to be out of debt. I believe that it's a good thing to have. I believe that it's something that we should do. I think it's good. So it's congruent with my beliefs. I also have a self-image that believes that I can do it, that it's a good thing, that I am actually capable of doing this. I don't know how to do it right now, but I know I must be capable. I have an image that says, yeah, I'm sure that somehow I can figure this out. It can be done. That's why I'm in this class, hoping to figure it out. And that's got to then be congruent with the actions, because we're going to have a class. I'm going to give you a bunch of things to do at some point, and they will not work if you don't do them. Like I've jokingly talked about in some of the sermons lately, the membership that I got at the gym has caused me to lose 0 weight. I've only gone once. I haven't taken the actions. Just the fact that I joined accomplished nothing. Okay? So this class will accomplish nothing if you don't take the necessary action. Okay? Now, and then of course, if you do these things, it will eventually lead to what you desire being what you receive. You get what you desire. Okay? So I want to make sure that we're going to spend a bunch of time figuring out the head part, because that's your biggest problem. The mechanics will be something we'll be able to do, and we'll get to that here. Hopefully, I'll give you an assignment at the end of this class that you could work on between now and the next class, and we'll get you started on the mechanics. But the mechanics will only get you so far if you don't get this other part right, okay? Now, so I'm going to use a travel map metaphor. I know I've used the mall map metaphor. We'll use that one too here in a minute. But the travel map metaphor, which is this. You need to know that you are a vehicle traveling down the road headed somewhere already. Just like everything that you've done up to this point has gotten you here, if you continue doing what you're doing, it's already taking you somewhere. Okay, and you need to have clarity on the two most important things, I guess is the way I would put this, if I want to simplify it: the carrot, what you want, and the stick, what you don't want. And if you don't like where you are now, how much more are you going to not like it if you think about where it takes you 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because you're already headed somewhere. You are not static. You are not just sitting, okay? Now, it may take you to a place that's exactly like where you are right now. It won't get any worse, won't get any better. It may take you to a place that's worse, it may take you to a place that's better. But you need to examine and say, okay, where am I already headed? Because after all, if you'd asked that question 10 years ago and you knew you were going to end up right here, you might have made different decisions, okay? And by here, I mean where you are financially. This is the issue we're dealing with, right? If anybody had actually grabbed you off to the side 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, said, hey, just so you know, everything you're doing right now is going to take you to sitting in this classroom today, wanting to figure out why you're not where you want to be financially. Well, guess what? You're going to be somewhere in 5 years. So here's part of your homework. I want you to, for yourself, take some time to sit and think about, if I don't change anything, what does my life look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Okay? Because you're going to end up somewhere. And it really isn't, I don't want to call rocket science, whatever. I mean, it shouldn't be that tough to figure out, if I keep doing what I'm doing, this is where it's gotten me so far, where is it likely to put me in 5 years? I call this time warping. I do this when I counsel people. I do it with their relationships. I do it with their marriages. I do it with all aspects of life. In other words, I want you to sit and time warp forward that many years and say, okay, if I don't do anything different, then time warp forward and say, what if I was able to do things different? How awesome would that be to be out of debt and not have more month at the end of your money and be able to have some extra to do some fun things or whatever it is? Okay, so that's part of your desire, your carrot. The stick is saying, wow, I really don't want to do this and be in the same place for another 5 years or 10 years or more. All right? So do that exercise and use that as a motivator. But I want you to do it in both ways. As we go through this process, I'm going to help you get more clarity on where it is you want to go. But I want you to also time warp forward 5 years or 10 years and feel what it might feel like to be arriving in that space. What it might feel like having fixed this and not having this struggle anymore. And enjoy that feeling as a motivator. All right, because you're going to need motivation, because it's not going to happen like when I jokingly took out the checkbook and said, okay, how much does everybody need? That would fix all the problems. Actually, it wouldn't. You'd spend it, lose it, and be done with it and need more. All right? Almost every lottery winner, I mean almost 90 whatever percent, has ever won a lottery, okay, ended up worse than when they started within only a few years. Because they had no understanding of what to do with the money. Okay? That's why a lot of, athletes who go from, poverty to bazillionaires, their lives end up really screwed up because they had never had a transitional understanding of what to do with the money or how to live in that kind of a place with that kind of an income and the way people might all of a sudden want a bunch of stuff from them or whatever, It's funny because I actually was writing a curriculum at one point that I was going to put forth and recommend to colleges, where it was going to be the professional athlete course to teach them life transitions for when they go from poor to billionaires. And have people that have gone through that and made the mistakes and been there, done that, come and say, hey, don't do what I did. This is the right way to go from poor to millionaire, okay? And so that way it doesn't damage and screw them up like it does. All right, so you're going to time warp and do this little thing here. And so I use that travel map idea because, one of the things that you need to understand is that the old adage, we used to hear this adage, right? Where there's a will, there's a way. Well, yes and no, okay? Where there's a strong enough will, you will find a way. Don't just say where there's a will, there's a way. No. But if you want something bad enough, and you know this, you've had things in your life that you wanted bad enough, and you figured out how to get it at some point. You figured out how to make it happen or do what needed to be done so you could get that thing you wanted. And so you're going to need to really stir up that strength of desire. Look, it's the same reason why there's so many verses in the scripture about the kingdom, about what it'll be like to have every tear wiped away and have no more pain and all, because you need that motivator to get through the trials and the challenges of life. And if you didn't have that motivator, you'd probably quit. Well, that's going to be the same thing with this journey. You got yourself to where you are based on all the other stuff you've done up to this point, and it's not going to fix necessarily, very quickly. It'll fix piece by piece, little by little. You'll see progress. Some of you probably don't, I don't know how many people eventually will watch this. Maybe you don't have that much to fix, so maybe it'll fix fairly quickly. But still, it won't be fun. You're going to have to sacrifice some things. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. But it will be worth it if you have a desire that's worth it. Okay? And that's got to be, the problem is not the mechanics. It's having a big enough want to. Okay? But you also have you have to have a big enough stick too. How much you really don't enjoy being where you're at. Okay? If you're not getting something done because that stick is not scary enough. I'll give you an example. Most people that fall into this category like me, those of you who have lifetime memberships in Procrastinators Anonymous. Okay? Whatever can be done tomorrow should be. Okay? Why do today what you can put off? So, if you were part of that club, you probably did most of your papers in school the night before, or close to it. Okay? Now, why? Because it had to do with the carrot and the stick. Okay? You get the paper assignment, it's due in 2 months. You're saying, 2 months? I don't need 2 months to write a paper. And the scariness of not turning one in is about 0. I'll do it tomorrow or next week or whenever. Well, guess what? By the night before, you're like, uh-oh, there's a big stick about to hit me in the head when I show up at school without my paper. Now I'm going to sit down and get this thing done. Now, some of you that works 3 days before, some of you works a week before. But I'm just saying is, depending on how much of a stick you're imagining, okay? Of course, after doing that a couple of times and realizing how much fun that is, that should be enough of a stick to decide that wasn't fun, pulling an all-nighter to write, a crummy paper that got a D anyway because you were out of sleep and, trying to do this, on coffee and fumes, okay? And so you need that stick as well as the carrot, all right? You have to be really clear in your mind how much you don't like being where you are right now financially, okay? And then you have to be really clear how great it's going to be to get it done, and that's why you want to get it done. Because it's going to make your life less stressful and have more peace. And this is really not about being rich, okay? It's about having abundance. Abundance meaning that you have enough so that you can have enough. And that's different for everybody, okay? But when you don't have to, wonder, if I do this, and spend money on something, will I have enough to pay my basics like shelter and food, gas for my car so I can get to work, those tough decisions. Wouldn't it be nice to only have to struggle of whether or not to spend $1,000 as just when you struggle of whether or not you can afford to spend $20? Okay? Because you think of that $20 actually could really mess your budget up. And so work with these things on your psychology and your emotions so that you get the leverage that you need. Okay, you're going to need leverage. Okay, some of you think, well, when is he going to get to the mechanics? The mechanics are easy. Okay? I didn't say they'd be fun, but they're easy. It's not like it's hard and complicated. You won't understand them when we get there. But you have to get this part or you're never going to get the other part. All right? It's very important. All right, so let's go back to something I've been saying many, many times over the last couple of months, and anybody who's watching this doesn't know me, don't worry about it, I'm going to explain it now. But we talk about in all areas of your life, you need to own it. In other words, own the thing. We said you got here by all your choices, decisions, etc., and then realize that you can fix it. Okay, then you need to release. In this case, releasing all of the past beliefs, mindsets, and habits. Okay, you're going to have to decide that the mindsets, beliefs, and habits that got you here is not what you need to have to get where you want to go now. That's what you have to start to realize. I'm sorry, but I need to change the path. I got to change the vehicle. I got to change something. If you are trying to go from here to California, we're on almost the East Coast, we're trying to go all the way to the other side of the country, Walking probably won't get you there if you want to get there this year, okay? Maybe a year, but let's say you needed to get there this month. Walking will never get you there. So you have to realize that's a vehicle that won't work. You could ride a bicycle, probably still not going to get you there fast enough. So in other words, you choose a vehicle. You got to choose the right things that are necessary to actually accomplish the when and the where and the what, et cetera, that you need, and start recognizing that the beliefs, the habits, the mindsets that you've been using as part of your vehicle have not gotten you where you want to go. So you're going to need to change those things, all right? But you got to start by owning it. Okay, I know I started off by telling you that you are exactly where everything you have thought, believed, done, etc. has taken you. You got to own that. Oh, you don't understand my mother and my father, my boss, Stop pointing a finger at everybody, okay? If you're an adult, which almost everybody listening to this is an adult, who's living on their own, you are responsible. None of them is paying your bills or shouldn't be at this point. You're responsible for you. Stop blaming them. Don't blame your boss. If you don't like it, get a different boss. Who said you had to stay at that job? Oh, but you. Don't tell me, oh, but you, okay? Don't make excuses. Own it and then fix it, all right? Okay. Now, as far as this whole abundance versus lack thing, I'm going to just pause to just make a good moment for everyone. You need to understand that you've already won the lottery, okay? Okay, Yeshua is in your life. The Father has called you. Your eyes have been opened. Your ears have been opened. Your heart's ready to receive. Whatever your bill struggles are, paying your bills or anything else, you've still won the lottery. Not that it's a lottery. I'm not saying, because I mean, obviously, he wants to make this available. He says it's his desire that all men be saved. But at this point, in your life at least, recognize that you have won the lottery. Now, of course, just like the other millionaires that won lotteries, you could squander it, blow it, and end up worse than you started, okay? But you have won the lottery, so to speak. And so just recognize that. That's a beautiful thing to get you excited. Okay, so let's start getting into the process a little bit. Now, a lot of you have heard the old saying, ready, aim, fire. Well, I'm almost going to encourage you to do ready, fire, aim. I know that sounds dumb, but it enhances the doing it now part of this. Because some people get so stuck in the aim, they never shoot. Okay? Or they get stuck in the ready. Or almost like you say, fire, ready, aim or something. All right? No, but you should be ready. I'm going to give you some things to be ready, and then you need to fire, and then we're going to see how well you did, and then we're going to adjust, and then you're going to aim. But you got to get you guys going forward. All right? There was a guy I listened to many, many years ago on a tape from one of the multiple level marketing things, and they had tapes to motivate you, whatever. And this guy said that his big thing was that somebody taught him about do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. He'd wake up in the morning and say do it now like 100 times every day to get his mindset to do it now. And every time something would come up and he'd think about doing it later, he'd say, nope, do it now. If possible, everything that comes up, if you can do it now, do it now. We're going to learn a few things today. The best way to get started on any journey is as soon as possible, take a step in the right direction. So as soon as you leave this thing, if you can, if you're not going right to work, if you're not, then go home, do something in this direction of what we're going to give you today. Take a step forward. Remember, they always say things like the biggest thing in a journey is that first step. That's the hardest thing, is to get that first step. Take the first step, all right? And so that's what you need to do, is have that first step. Okay, so ready, fire, aim. So here's the process in the ready, fire, aim. Okay, first we're going to identify where you are. That's kind of the mall map thing, okay? We talked about the travel map. Now it's the mall map, okay? You're standing at the mall, and they got the big kiosk sign there when you walk in one of the entrances, and it's got a little X and says, you are here. And the reason I use the mall map thing is if you think you're in front of JCPenney's, but you're really in front of like the sporting goods store, you're going to not find what you want to find. You need to have a clarity of you are here, okay? Or if you go on any kind of like Google Maps or any map and you're trying to get directions somewhere, if you go on your GPS on your phone, you're not going to get really good directions unless it knows correctly where you are to give you the right directions to get there, okay? So step one of our process is, I'm going to give you some things to do here in a little bit, are going to be about identifying where you are in your finances, okay? Then you have to identify where you want to go. Maybe step one is I want to get out of debt. Maybe step one is I just want to make sure I'm not losing money, that I actually can pay my bills without falling behind. Whatever it is for you. Maybe you're thinking, wow, I'm getting older, I've got nothing put aside for retirement. I might need to be able to get everything situated so I could actually start putting into that. Whatever it is. Okay, so process. 1, identify where you are. 2, figure out where you want to go. 3, with guidance, develop your map. Okay, so we're going to take the map on how to get there. Now we're back to the travel map. Okay? You know where you are, you know where you want to go, now you got to figure out how you're going to get there. Okay, there's lots of different ways to get from one side of town to the other side of town. Are you going to take, a main street? Are you going to take a highway? Are you going to take a back roads? What is the best way to get from here to there? Okay? And so that helps if you have guidance, you have counsel. So you're going to hopefully have somebody, a mentor, in this case me, who's teaching you, to help you with your map. All right? And then this is part of the ready, right? Ready is identifying where you are, identifying where you want to go, get some guidance. Now you're going to fire. You got to drive. Okay, if you're talking about a travel map, you actually have to get in that car and drive. Doesn't matter that you went and got your plan of your itinerary and the route you're going to take. And, we used to go to AAA and get the little triptych. With the little, remember that? Some of you are old enough to remember that? And it showed you all the route to go, because there was no GPS back then. And they'd take their little pink marker or green marker and they'd highlight it for you and give you all your pages of where you're going and stamps for where the construction was and other things, right? Okay, but you had to still get in the car to drive. You got to drive. Okay, so what does driving look like? First of all, if the amount of level of urgent action, which is maybe minimal or nothing at this point, has gotten you where you are, you need to recognize that you need to take some massive amounts of action if there's an urgency to get from where you are to where you want to go. If you want to stop being where you are, okay? It's not going to take a little effort. It's going to take massive amounts of consistent action. Okay, so this is the 3 words I'm going to give you with this. The massive action has to be consistent, persistent, and you have to have discipline. All right? But you have to take massive action. Okay, I'm going to give you a task to do here in a little bit. Well, you're not going to do it here. You're going to take it home and do it, and you can go home and spend 5 minutes on it, or you can sit there and I'm going to sit down and spend 3 hours until I get it done. I'm going to take a lot of action and get it done now. Massive amounts of action, okay? I study a lot of the success people out there. I study all the success trainers, success teachers, and every one of them says the same thing. You want to get where you want to go, and you don't like where you are, it's going to take putting massive action into something. And if you think massive action, that's going to overcome all of your little, these tiny little efforts we've been putting into things up to this point. Okay? Massive amounts of action. Consistently. Don't put in massive amount of actions one day and then do nothing for 3 weeks. Okay? You want to be able to do the actions consistently, persistently, because it's not going to fix everything right away. So you got to be persistent, and then you have to have the discipline to stick to the plan, because you're going to have a plan, and you got to stick to it. All right? If your plan, for example, is to drive from here to New York, and you can do that in about 12 hours with no stops, depending on how many stops, you could do that in 13, 14, 15 hours. Well, let's say you want to be there in 15 hours, and you know that allows for 2 stops. Well, you can't make 5 stops. See, that's the discipline of it. If 2 stops is the maximum you can make, I mean like meals, I don't mean like just pulling over to get gas, but I mean where you're going to stop and get a meal and lose an hour, okay? You can't do that 5 times if you need to be there by 15 hours. It takes discipline. Okay? And so you're going to have to be disciplined in your spending. Just like I tell people, I used to be a personal trainer. And I talked about regulating what goes in your mouth as well as regulating and putting more effort into the amount of body movement you do. Do you work out? Do you move your body? Are you stationary? And are you, doing nothing most of the time? Are you very sedentary? And I say, great, going to the gym once a week is good. It's not going to do anything, okay? You need to have more consistency, be more persistent, and doing it just, oh, I had a good week. I worked out 4 times this week, but then you did nothing for a month. That's not persistence, okay? You're going to have to stick to it, keep going, and have the discipline. Oh, but it wasn't fun. That's okay. Most things that you enjoy in life that are big goals and things to have, things you might desire, it takes things that are not fun to get there. All right? You know, in the workout world, they call it no pain, no gain. Okay? The greater the struggle, the greater the reward, the greater the victory. That's scriptural, by the way. You know? And that's why we're told that he who overcomes all those struggles persistently, consistently, with discipline, to the end, receives all this, it says in Revelation. Right? Okay. So, you're going to identify where you are, and I'm going to tell you how to do that in a minute. Then you're going to figure out where you want to go. That you can do at any point. You got to decide. I need to make this much money so I can have this, so I can do whatever, okay? We're going to figure that all out. We're going to develop a map on how you're going to get there, and then you're going to drive. Okay, you're going to do massive action consistently, persistently with discipline, and then we're going to aim. We're going to take this is going to be a cycle, okay? Then you're going to say, okay, now where am I? I did all of that. Where did it get me? Oh, I'm going generally in the right direction, but I'm a little off left, a little off right, whatever. I didn't go exactly where I wanted to go. So now I'm going to aim, adjust my aim. I'm going to make an adjustment to my plan. I still know where I want to go. That didn't change. But now where I am is a little different. I'm going to have to make an adjustment. You know, an airplane is off course 90-something% of the time, as far as being straight, perfect in line. The wind patterns and other things that are happening. So they're constantly making adjustments. Look, I'm teaching my daughter to drive right now. One of the things I had to show her was how when you hold the steering wheel, you don't hold it rigid and just think I'm going to go straight. You have a certain gentleness to it because it always has a little bit of a subtle left and right thing going on. So essentially, you're off course. Because if you kept going that way, left or right, you'd not go, you'd end up in a ditch or something, right? Or a guardrail or somebody's driveway or something. But you're making these very subtle little adjustments all the time. Okay? And so this is where the aim comes in. You got ready. You figured out where you were. You figured out where you wanted to go. You came up with a plan. That was ready. Then you shot. You drove. You did the massive action. Now you're going to do the aim. It's like if you went out to a firing range and you pulled out the gun and you got it all set, you aimed at the target, you're standing in the right place, you know what you want to shoot at, and you pull the trigger and you missed the target low, off by a couple of inches. Okay, so now I got to adjust because I missed low to the right. Or maybe I missed high to the left, or maybe whatever it is, so you make an adjustment. All right? So that's the aim part. And then we're going to keep repeating this till you get where you want to go. Okay? Now, included in this is when we get to the step with the developing the map, that's where you want guidance. So along the way, when you're going to do a kind of a spot check, this is the aim part, and you figure out where you're at again, then you want to figure that out. Maybe you don't know what kind of adjustments to make, so you go to the professional. Okay, I'm at a shooting range. I've not been shooting much in my life. I have a friend who's a professional, shoots very well, and I say, I'm consistently shooting a little bit high and to the right. And he can say to me, this is why. You're squeezing it this way, you're doing that, or whatever it is. You're dropping your shoulder, you're moving your hand, whatever. Get a professional who can say, let me evaluate what you're doing based on where you want to go and give you guidance on what you might need to adjust to fix the problem of being slightly off course. Okay? Get some mentoring, get some guidance. Keep doing this in a cycle. Okay? That's this pattern that you're going to keep doing. All right? Okay. So now let's talk about the mechanics of this, the physiology. So we got the psychology of it and the physiology. What are you actually going to do? Okay? What are you actually going to do? Okay, let's just remember again as we get into the mechanics that the mechanics are never an issue if the desire is great enough, right? Where there's a will that is strong enough, then you'll figure out what to do, okay? Where the will is enough, a way will be found. Okay, so I talked about the goal setting part earlier already, where you got to figure out where you want to go, and then you have your carrot and your stick and really kind of make sure. And look, it helps to probably write this stuff down, okay? And put a date on it even. Say, look, I want to be out of debt by this time next year. Okay, you don't have to have that goal. I'm just making one up, okay? So you put a date on it, by this time next year, because you know what? If you want to be out of debt by June, you're going to have to do different things than if you want to be out of debt 3 years from now. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? In other words, you'll break it up into smaller chunks or bigger chunks, depending on how fast you want to get there. Okay? All right? I'll give you an example. I'm in the process of refinancing my house because the rates went down. And I have a choice. Do I want to keep the 30-year mortgage so to pay off my house in 30 years? Am I willing to pay more and pay it off in 15 years? Can I afford to do that? Okay, so I'm going to have to make different decisions and take different actions and have a different expense going on in my budget based on a decision on when I want something to be accomplished. Okay? I can pay smaller amounts and do it in 30 years. I can pay bigger amounts and do it in 15 years. There is no right answer. There's a right answer for me, but there's not a right answer. By the way, keep that in mind when you go through this whole process, that there is no right answer. Okay? If you're happy and comfortable where you are now, you don't have to do anything. Nobody should tell you what's wrong with you being where you are. Okay? If you're content, why should it bother anybody else? But you're here because you're not. You want to fix something. And so this is why we're going to do this exercise so that you can have some techniques and some understanding of how that can be done. All right? All right, so the mechanics. So where do you start? Okay, so this is back to that mall map where you are here. So what we're going to do is we got to figure out how you got here and what you're actually doing right now. Okay? So I have something to hand out. Okay, so while you're getting this, it's a basic ledger sheet. What I want you to do, okay, is I want you to figure out where you are. And the way you're going to do that is you have to figure out what kind of spending you've already been doing. And most people have no idea what they spend. They know that at the end of the month, they're short, or they just barely get by the skin of their teeth, but they have no idea what they spend. Okay? I've had a husband and wife, situation where, the wife was like, well, I only buy this, it's only $10 and that's only $5. Yeah, but you buy 50 of them, that's $1,000 right there. Okay, if they're, whatever it is, $20 times 50. Okay? And so you may not have any idea how much you're spending on Starbucks or whatever, these things that don't seem like they're big. So our first effort here is to give everybody like 3 or 4 of them, all right? So what you're going to do is this. Most of you probably don't pay cash for most things. Everybody tends to use a debit card or a credit card. So that's going to be easy. If you spend cash, it'll be a little tougher, just because you won't necessarily remember everything you spend. So it might be easier going forward, those of you that spend cash. You may not be able to do this as easily, figuring out what you've already done, but you could start now tracking what you are doing. Does it make sense? For those of you that use plastic, all right, what you're going to do is get your bank statements, credit card statements, whatever you use, maybe it's a department store statement, whatever cards you have, get them for the last 3 months. Oh yeah, this is going to be some work. And it's not going to be exciting and scintillating work. It's drudgery. But this is where the massive action comes in, okay? Get your statements out. I gave you a very simple ledger sheet, okay? You could do this with a spreadsheet. You could put it in Excel, whatever you want to do. It's very good if you could put it in a spreadsheet because then you can sort, all right? So what you're going to do is take those 3-month statements, and you have a basic ledger sheet. So on your ledger sheet, there's a date. That's the date that you did whatever you did. There's an item. Okay, you bought coffee, you bought clothes, you bought food, you paid rent, you paid utilities, your cell phone bill, whatever it is you did. Money went out or money came in. Okay, debits, I wrote the word in red so that you know that's money going out. Credit means it's money coming in. Okay? Don't worry about credit cards and other words that you've heard. This is accounting language, okay? That's why you have a debit card. That's where you take money out of your account. All right? Okay? So you will write the date, what it is that you did. Now bear in mind, if you went to the store and you bought food and you bought things for dish soap and shampoo. You bought multiple different types of things. See if you can break out what part of that percentage-wise. You do not need to be accurate to the penny. And no, if you spent $100, if you got it 60-40 and it really was 65-35, that's not going to kill anything. Just make sure you get the whole $100 in there somewhere, okay? But you want to try to be accurate as you can get with these things, okay? Now, so you're going to put the date, you're going to put the item, you're going to put whether it was money going out or money coming in, because maybe you got a paycheck. Maybe you got, don't forget, refunds, okay? If you gave something back to the store and they gave you money back because you returned it, that gets budgeted in as not something you actually spent, because then you probably went and bought another one to replace the one you didn't like, okay? So otherwise you'll end up with 2 charges. So if you had something you bought at Walmart or wherever it is, and then you returned it and they gave you back your $20, make sure you put that in there as money that came back, all right? Because that's going to be part of you figuring out how much you actually spent on different things. And there's a thing called category. So write it as a category. Now, let me actually give you, now the reason I gave you those sheets is because I want to make sure that you see what I'm talking about, okay? Look at your sheets in front of you. This is a budget. We're not doing the budget part yet. We're going to talk about the ledger part first. That first sheet I gave you is called a ledger, where you write down everything you spend and everything that comes in. Okay, that sheet is called a ledger. I could have written that on top, I suppose, but the first sheet I gave you is called a ledger. Now, the second sheet and third sheet that you got, one is one that I already put in categories of expenses and income and that kind of thing, and I gave you a blank one you can put your own in, okay? Now, you probably have most of the things categorized the way I did it in the sample, okay? These are potential things that you are talking about as far as the categories, all right? So you have housing as a category when you're looking through what you spent money on. Rent, mortgage, whatever, that's your housing. You may have insurance, renter's insurance or mortgage insurance, whatever. There may be insurance related to the housing, not other insurances. There's places for that as well. Utilities, maybe you pay electric, maybe you pay gas, maybe you pay both. Maybe you pay water or trash, okay? Transportation, okay, maybe you have a vehicle payment, insurance on the vehicle, gas, maintenance, registration, etc., okay? You have a phone that you're paying for. I didn't include even things, well, I did actually lower down, I see now. Okay, you have food, clothing, toiletries, household goods, all right? I have a category at the bottom called miscellaneous. I tend to, on my budgets, put miscellaneous as things like toilet paper, tissues, paper towels, dishwashing liquids. I mean, that's under my miscellaneous. Okay, I put that together. But you can call it household goods, you can call it toiletries. You can break this up in any way you want, as specific as you want. All right? I got really specific here so you cover a lot of ideas. Insurance, health-related issues. You have insurance maybe, you have medical expenses, dental expenses, vision expenses, hearing expenses. I mean, that's actually something that people could have with dealing with their hearing aids, batteries and stuff. Medication, supplements, equipment. All right, I've got a CPAP. Actually, I got a BiPAP. That means I have to buy hoses and masks and things on a regular enough basis. Okay? Life insurance. Entertainment, maybe you have internet, cable, satellite TV, maybe meals, snacks, coffee, movies, games, etc. Okay? Now, because I put them on the list doesn't mean you have to have these things that you're spending on. This is not a suggested spending list. Okay, pet care, if you have a pet, pets are expensive. You got to feed them, you got to take care of them. Savings, maybe some of you are putting money into savings, probably not too many of you because that's probably why you're here, right? Miscellaneous, so if you want to use miscellaneous the way I did on this sheet, that is for anything and everything that you might have messed up and forgotten about. So I would put an extra $100 or whatever dollars a month in there just to cover the things you might not have thought of. Okay, it's extra things that maybe that a category doesn't exist for them necessarily, that can come up, just throw something in there, okay? Okay, credit card and debt and loans and stuff, you can make line items for each one if you want, or you can put them all together as far as what your payments are every month. Okay, so ignore this sheet for a second, go back to your ledger, okay? I just wanted to say, so on your ledger, you have a date, the item, whether it was coming in or going out, and then a category. The categories are what you're going to put in your budget. Which category did it come under? Was it under housing, meaning that it was the water bill or the trash bill or whatever? Was it under transportation? Did it have to do with that you got gas or you had to get an oil change or whatever, right? So put the category. Because what you're going to do after you finish that, do 1 month at a time just to kind of get yourself together. You're going to then sort that through to get a total expense in that area. What was your total outgo for food? Okay, because you bought food, not exactly once a week. Maybe you went twice in 1 week and you skipped a week, whatever. But over the month, you realize, wow, I spent $400 on food. Because that's the line item you need for your budget sheet. So the other sheet I gave you is your budget sheet, the one with the categories already written on it, okay? And the first sheet I gave you was your ledger, okay? So once you figure out what you are spending on these things, you're going to go ahead and put it in your budget sheet, okay? Now, if you are a cash spender, okay, this will take a little longer for you. What you can do, cash spenders, is start now writing down everything you spend every day and start tracking it. So you'll not be able to go backwards as easily and figure out what you've already been doing. There's an advantage to that, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. It's kind of like when I was a personal trainer, what I made people do, because you can't really figure this out like with a bank statement. I said, I want you for the next 2 weeks to write down everything that goes in your mouth. What you're drinking and what you're eating. I don't want you to change it, because people think, oh, he's going to see it. He's going to think. And I said, don't change it. We want an accurate where you are. What do you normally eat and drink? That's what I would do as a trainer. And then I would say, oh, look, did you realize this? But you eat donuts 3 times a week. So maybe we want to cut that down to twice a week and then once a week. You know, I'm just saying is, but let's first figure out what we're doing. Same thing with your expenditures. You're going to say, oh, I had no idea that I did this so many times and spent this much money on this area. I just thought, oh, it's only $5, only $5. Yeah, but if you do that 10 times, it's $50. Okay? 20 times is $100. In some of your budgets, $100 is a lot of money. And you don't realize how much you're spending these little, well, it was just $5. That adds up. Okay? So as you're going through this, the cash ones are just like what I do with the people when I was doing the training. You're going to have to do it going forward. Keep your ledger with you. Every time you spend any money, make sure you write it down. If it's cash, right? I went to the store, and if you're at the store, you should know, looking at your receipt, this much was for toiletries or this much was for food, and so you can break some of those categories out a little bit, okay? Because if you spent one thing and you just went to Walmart, and you got some clothes, you got some toiletries, you got some food, that's not gonna help you know what you could have done to kind of reduce that expenditure. Because the food part maybe wasn't the one you want to reduce. Maybe you can reduce one of the other categories, but it all went into the fact that you have a receipt that you spent $150. Okay, but you didn't spend it on one thing. You spent it on 3 categories. Okay? So you want to try to break these things out. Those of you that are going to have a problem with your debit card, credit card, you may have the same problem. If you go to a place like Walmart and you buy 4 different categories worth of stuff in one, purchase, you may need to do this more going forward. Try going backwards as best you can. When you look at an expenditure, try to guess percentage-wise how much that might have been. If you have the receipts, even better. This is going to be work, but the more accurate, the better it's going to work. Everybody understand that? It's good? Okay. All right, so you're going to create out of this a budget. Now, the budget going forward is first going to figure out what you're already doing. Not what you want to do and what your goals are, but you got to first figure out where you're at. I mean, I've sat down with people and they didn't realize that they were hemorrhaging $200 or $300 a month out of their, that they were literally losing money every month. They knew that something was wrong in their financing, but they had no idea how much the bleeding was, all right? And the first thing we want to do is figure out how bad it is and then how quickly we can, at least stop the bleeding before necessarily going forward. All right, this is the accurate, you are here. And I don't beating this to death, but you got to really know where you're starting. What have you been doing up to this point? Okay? And that, be as brutally honest as you can so that you really know what you've been doing. And if there's anything I didn't put on the sheet here, which is why I gave you a blank one, you can take anything off of the sheet that you don't do and put things that you do. I mean, there might be stuff. Look, I have not had a pet in a long time. So when I first showed this sheet to some of the staff for input, they said, well, what about pet care? I was like, see, I forgot about that one. Because it wasn't even a thought for me because I don't have a pet. I haven't had one for years, so wasn't even thinking about pet care. All right? I don't have anything with hearing stuff, but we have staff members that do. I've got a father-in-law that now does, and that's something that you have to replace and get batteries and other things. The stuff that you have to do for hearing. Okay, vision, dental, whatever it is, all right? So start putting all what you spend money on a regular basis. You may have a subscription. You may have some other thing that you do. Maybe you're subscribed to some music program, on YouTube or whatever it is, and that costs you so much a month. Maybe you have Netflix. Put it on there under the entertainment section. Maybe you've got some other thing and you pay every month. Whatever it is, write it down. Okay? Write it down. All right, so I'm going to show you one more thing before we're going to kind of wrap this up for today for the first class. So this is your assignment when you go home. Okay, between now and the next class. I want you to get this done in a week. Don't laugh. Massive action. Okay? If this is important enough, you'll make time for it. Do the best you can. Now, if you have a challenge going forward, then some of it may not get done, but you're going to at least commit that every penny this week that you spend goes on the ledger. And by the way, even if you're not cash spenders, I want you to start using a ledger going forward. Arguably the richest man in the world in his day, okay, John D. Rockefeller, all right? He had a ledger that tracked every penny he ever spent. He started that when he was a little kid, young teenager. His father taught him or whatever, but he kept a ledger. I mean, literally, when he used to give away dimes and give away stuff to people, he wrote that down in the ledger. He knew where every penny went. All right? Look, if it helped the richest guy in the world at the time, it might help you too. So going forward, starting immediately, tonight or tomorrow, you might spend some money tonight. I don't know, maybe somebody will go out and get a cup of coffee or do something. Any money you spend going forward, keep track of it. If it helps you when you go to the store, separate the category stuff and pay for them separately. Get 3 different charges so that you know. Separate out your food from your toiletries, from your household goods, from whatever it is, okay? Or if you maybe picked up some clothing, you picked up a shirt, a pair of pants, whatever. I mean, separate stuff out. Anything to help you know where your money's going, okay? Now, the same thing as far as your income. Now, let's go to the bottom of the sheet so you can see this, okay? Now, I have, and by the way, this sheet is something, if you want it, you can email me. Okay, I'll look for the emails, or just let me know you emailed me, and I can email you this sheet, and it's actually set up to calculate. So if you plug something in, it will do the math for you. Like, for example, if you can, oh yeah, we're good on the screen. Like, for example, if you look at the income here, if I type in that a person is working 40 hours a week at $15 an hour, that comes out to a net income of $2,288 for the month. Okay, now if I go over here, I can also adjust the tax rate. That's based on a 12% tax rate, and also there's a tithing that's already calculated at 20%, and that comes out right here. You see that there, the minus 520? So the sheet does all kinds of things. So if you make $10 an hour, it's going to adjust. If maybe you have a second job and you only work 20 hours on that job, and that job pays you $10 an hour, okay, you could put that in. If it's a 2-income house, you could put in the 2 different incomes. And that will end up here in net source of income 1, net source income 2. So you're getting the net up there, already taking the taxes out. Now the tithing is based on the gross. So it's already set to figure that out. Now if you don't know what your hourly is, maybe you get an annual salary. So instead of this, let me delete those out. Okay, so but you know that you make $25,000 a year. Okay, so you could put that in there and it comes up with a monthly. And I guess I didn't get it to calculate. Okay, I'm going to have to fix that. All right, but it gives you the monthly, and then the monthly then can go through the same process that come up here. I have to figure out a way to give it the way to do that. Sorry, I thought that one was already set to calculate. But that's an easy thing to fix, okay, to put the formula in. But that still tells you your monthly gross is $2,083, all right? So you could figure that out if you didn't know. I wonder if you could just punch it in here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay? So you can just take your monthly that it calculates and then stick it on the left there, and it'll go already do the math for you. All right? Okay? So that should help quite a bit. Okay, so you need to know what you make, because you have one of two problems. Okay? Either you don't make enough, or you're spending too much, or both. Actually, it's one of three problems. Okay? You can lose weight just changing the way you eat. You can lose weight just changing the way you move your body. It's much more effective if you do both. You see what I'm saying? All situations kind of work the same. They're not very complicated, because people say, well, I don't know what I need to do to, you know what you need to do. You just don't want to do it. You're hoping there's like some simple, pill you can take and it fixes everything. Okay? Regulate your spending. Do what you can to increase your income. That will fix your problem. Okay? Some of you need to change jobs. Some of you need to aim higher at a job that pays better. Some of you just need to get a second job, temporarily, just to get off. Maybe you'd be fine if you just got some bills paid and you had the debt paid. So all that money that's going into paying off the debt, if that was done, you'd be fine. So maybe you don't need to make more long term. Maybe you just need to make more short term. It really just depends on what your goals are. Okay? So you want to create ledgers for the last 3 months. If you can't do that, then you want to at least start going forward with the ledgers. Okay, so if you're getting child support, that's a question. Okay, so you can stick that into, and does child support come, how's that as far as taxes? Okay, it's going to depend. You want to just make sure that it goes under one of your income sources in the form of the net. Okay, what you actually get to keep. All right, so if you can figure that out, you can always make that an income source. By the way, you'll be able to add another line here. You can have 3 different sources, 4 different sources, because maybe you have a job, maybe you have a part-time job, maybe you also get something like child support or whatever. You can put them all in there. Maybe there's 2 or 3 earners in the house. Maybe you've got an older child at the house who's helping pay some bills, and you're going to count some of that income. Only count their contribution, though. They're giving you $200 a month, to help with the rent, or they're giving you $400, whatever it is, right? So just only count that contribution here, because you want to have an honest understanding of what money is available to pay the part on the top, the expenses. Okay, all the stuff on top. And then there's underneath the income, it says monthly balance. So it's going to tell you how much you ended up with plus or minus for the month. And then that will give you a cumulative on the bottom. Okay? So right here you see there was $1,416 positive. Then the next month you have a total of extra $2,800 and $4,200, etc. Okay? Now, a couple of more things. You want to also find a way to make sure in your budget are items that don't come up every month. Like, for example, you don't get an oil change every month. So make sure you kind of know, I get that about how often, kind of pay attention, and then know that you can add that in. You don't pay your insurance maybe for your car every month. Maybe you pay it every 6 months. I mean, some things you pay annually or every 6 months or quarterly. The best way to do it in your budget is to average it out. Another way to do it is to go that many months. At the top of the sheet, it has February, March, April, May. If you know it comes out in July, just go into July and stick the number in there. But you also know that that's going to skew your budget that month. So if you know that your insurance, let's say your insurance is, just make it simple, okay? Let's say your insurance is $1,200, it's $100 a month. Okay, it's $1,200 a year, $600 every 6 months, whatever it is you're paying. Well, just budget in $100 a month, but that means you need to not spend that $100. It's for the insurance, okay? But just make sure it's budgeted, knowing it's going to happen. That way you're not surprised, you're ready for it, all right? Because some of you are pretty good at this already, because you budget for the tax refund. You already planned it, you already spent it, you're already ready for it, you know what you're getting, and you have that all. If you could do that on an exciting positive, because you're planning to buy the car or go on the trip or whatever you're planning to do, why can't you do that on the negative side? You know these bills come up every year, every quarter, every 6 months, whatever it is, budget it in. But then you have to have the discipline to not spend that money. That money needs to be sitting, waiting for when the bill comes, because it's going to come, all right? Okay, like budgeting for the feast. Okay, having a feast account. So you should have an insurance thing in your account where you know, I'm going to maybe take the money out, stick it in an envelope, and have that money for the insurance so that when finally the bill comes, you take that money, you put it back in the bank, and write the check. Okay? Whatever it is, make sure that basically what we're doing is pre-spending the money. But initially, we're actually figuring out what we're already spending the money on. Going forward, when you make the adjustments, right? Remember, we're getting ready, then we're going to fire, we're going to try to make some adjustments, then we're going to see how well that did and make other adjustments. That's the aim. But make sure you are putting in here, and I would say cost average, things that don't come up every month. Okay? Maybe you have renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is not expensive. It's $100 and something a year. Well, you know what? That's $10 a month. Put it in there. Okay? All right? Just put it in there. Some of the small things you may just decide not to put in there because you're going to cover it with your $200 a month miscellaneous or $100 a month miscellaneous, which is to cover those things like an oil change. That doesn't happen all the time. So you can decide not to make an item for something if you make your miscellaneous big enough to come up with and handle those things that are underneath your miscellaneous amount on a monthly basis. You know, the $30 oil change, whatever it is, right? Okay? So you figure out what works for you, but just make sure that you have things worked out so that nothing that happens is not already accounted for in your budget. All right? Okay? Now going forward, as we work on the budget, not this week, but next time, we'll start making adjustments on how you recognize, now looking at your budget, what things that you may eliminate that you're spending money on that you don't really need to. Not maybe where you're at in your income at the moment. Maybe later you can do it. Or you might realize, wow, I really do need to get a second job or a better job or look at a way to make more money or whatever it is. We'll look at that, and that's where we now start looking forward and saying, okay, this is the aim, this is the adjusting. Let me see where I'm at, and I'll make a plan on how to get where I want to go. Okay? All right. I think that is all I've got on my sheets here. Okay, so let me just show you, for example, what this can look like. All right? So we'll take, also, so if you get the spreadsheet, the way the columns are, see all the zeros? Those zeros are meaning that anything I put in that first column, all of the other ones will automatically say the same thing. So if somebody has a rent, let's say the rent is $500, they go straight across. You see it on the screen? Okay? Now, if for whatever reason you had something that you wanted to say only comes up in 6 months and it's let's say it's a $500 payment, you can leave that one as blank. You could put a 500 here in the June, okay? And then you just need to make that one back to a 0 so it doesn't keep going, okay? All right? Okay, so let's just get an idea of how this can look. Oh, this thing is funny with my mouse, okay. So what would be a fair number just to kind of put out there for rent in this town? About $800, would that be good? Just a ballpark number just to put out there. We're just gonna work with, I just wanna show certain things here. And let's say you're paying renter's insurance, and let's say that's about $150 or whatever that is for the year. Utilities. 150? No, that's not per month. That's for the year. So I'm sorry, that's $10 a month. See, I'm glad. See, I want to see if you guys are paying attention. Okay? Utilities, what's that a month? Huh? About 200? Okay? That's okay. We could be really conservative. I just want you to see how this will work out. If you're paying for water, water comes out to about 20. Is that about right? 12, 15, 20, something like that? Okay, it's all bundled together. So let's leave the 200 now for everything. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Let's assume for a second that you don't have a vehicle payment. Okay? We're just going to really be conservative here. Insurance, how much a month? $80 good for a just conservative amount for insurance? We'll just throw that out there for right now. I just want you to see how quickly this all adds up. Gas, what are we spending on gas a month? 60, 100? Do I hear 75? Going once, going twice? 60 going. Well, let's just put 60 just to see. You'll see how this can work out. Let's say that your vehicle ends up needing things to be worked on. Let's say over the year, that might be as much as, let's say, I don't know, $600 at least, maybe $50 a month. Okay, maybe $1,000 for the year. Okay, so let's make it almost, so we'll make it, all right, so we can make it, for 1,000, we'll make it $80 a month. All right, we'll make it, okay? We'll leave registration out for right now. That's not a very big expense. Okay, what are people spending on their phones? 45. Okay, 45. Some people have some cheap phones. Good. What are we spending on food? 1,600 a month? You got a big family. Yeah. All right, well, we're going to go real conservative. I want you to see where this ends up. Okay, 400. What about clothing? Now, you don't buy it every month, but what do you figure you spend a year on clothing? 100? You don't wear any clothes out. Huh? All right. Okay, between those, okay, well, let's just make this one, okay, let's just make it 40 a month, makes it 500 for the year about. Then you could buy, because I mean, you're going to need new underwear, if ladies need new bras, new this, new, you know, you tear a hole in some pants, you need that, socks, shoes, whatever. I mean, you're going to wear some stuff out. I mean, I don't care who you are, stuff wears out eventually. Listen, I don't buy clothes very often, but when I do, I buy a whole bunch of it, and then I don't buy it again for 3 years, and I buy a whole bunch of it, okay? But it still adds up, okay? Okay, so we can make that, even if you want to make it smaller, let's make it $250 for the year, okay? All right, toiletries, household goods, we could even make that just one category for right now. What are you spending on napkins, toilet paper, paper towels, toothpaste, shampoo, dishwashing liquid, hand soap? How much? 20? No, well, listen, we got people here that really are, you know, cutting that budget tight. Okay, well, I want to hear more numbers. 50? Okay, we're going to put that, we'll just put it here under household goods, so it's going to cover both. All right? We'll even skip the insurance for right now. How about what you guys are spending on entertainment? Let's just make it for all the categories together just to make this simple. Internet, snacks, meals, going to a restaurant, going to City Cafe, you know, for a month. Okay, how much? 75, 80, sometimes, I mean, between going out and eating, getting 100? Who said 100? All right, let's make it 100 for right now. Okay, look, I just included all entertainment-related things, okay? All right, I'm not even going to go to pet care at the moment, okay? Okay, no, I'm just saying that you can add these things up. Okay, that's already a loss of $429 that month. Okay, that's if you're making, well, let me go back and change this, hold on. Let me make that formula back to what it was. Okay, well, okay, let's say somebody's making, we'll make it something kind of pretty normal for this area, $15 an hour, okay? At $15 an hour, you're still losing $77. And we did not fill in everything. That doesn't include credit card debt or any other kind of loans. It doesn't include car payments. It doesn't include any kind of other insurance or supplements that you might need for medical or whatever you take. Some of you take, you know, some sort of naturopathic supplements or whatever. Those cost money. It doesn't include a lot of things. Okay, so skipping some of these things and putting fairly small numbers in everything, look where we ended up with. Okay? We're still bleeding out almost $100 a month. Okay? And I left out, look at how many blank spaces there are here. Okay? And if you have a pet, now you're even in more trouble. No, because that's $40, $50 a month, whatever it is. You got to feed them. You got to do whatever you got to do, right? Okay? There's nothing for savings. We didn't put anything in miscellaneous. And miscellaneous should be at least $100 to cover all things you did not think of that came up that you didn't expect or whatever. Okay? It doesn't include any gifts you might want to get anybody for whatever reason. Okay? Health insurance, if you're paying health insurance, I didn't include anything for that. Okay? Whatever that is, depends on what kind of insurance you have. So see, look at how quickly a $15 an hour thing is not going to work for you. Okay? Look, I had this conversation, and I don't mind putting this on record, and then we're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but, you know, my son started working at Taco Bell, And he got sent home one day because they overbooked. So they said, one of you needs to go home, send him home. He was the low man on the pole. And he was concerned that there were some of the people that worked there that were sort of primary income makers, that could really hurt them to be sent home and lose a few hours. And I said to him, I'm sorry, Stephen, but you need to understand, nobody should be working for this kind of pay as a primary income. You should have figured out how to do something else, okay? That kind of job is well suited to a person who is supplementing, a spouse who's supplementing, or an older person who wants supplemental to their retirement stuff, or a young person who wants some income while they're still going to school or whatever. It is not. $15 an hour is not a primary income. Not in this country. Now, if you're single, that was just single. I didn't even have you like having to pay for kids or anything else, okay? I mean, you add in Craig's with all his kids, he said food's gonna run over 1,000, 1,500. Okay? But I'm just saying, you know, you add a spouse and kids into the mix, and this thing is never gonna work on these kind of things. And that's because the people didn't think, they didn't plan, they didn't ever imagine going forward, what am I going to need? Okay, you're gonna need a whole lot more than this, okay? Now, of course, if you have somebody else working $15 an hour and they got an extra 20 hours a week in there, now you're ahead, but I left out all those categories. And so that's what this budget sheet can do for you, okay? So you can start, see, spreadsheets are designed to ask the question, what if? What if I made more? What if I spent less? What if I did both? And you can mess with the numbers and then they change, and you can see how one little adjustment changes everything. So I'll give you an example. When I lived in New York at a very normal, average 3-bedroom apartment, I was paying that for rent. Okay? And let's see what kind of income I would have had to have an hour to even make that even remotely work. Forget about that food and everything else is more expensive than this. Let's try 30. 30 still has me short by $100 a month. Okay, we'll go to 32. That barely makes it. Okay? So be happy you live in Tennessee. Okay? And I'm not talking about like living in a penthouse, luxury apartment. That was just a normal 3-bedroom, 1,500 square feet apartment. Okay? All right? Not to mention that you have, now bear in mind, the taxes I put on this sheet, I put 12%, which is federal up to $50,000, up to $49,000. In New York, you have another 13% when you add state and city, if you're in New York City. I don't know what they paid Craig upstate, but you're not sure. Okay, but in the city, that was back when I lived there a long time ago, it was 8 plus 5. So it was another 13%. Okay, you don't have a state income tax here. It's a great thing, okay? There's no state income tax, all right? It also makes your filing a lot easier. You don't have to file a state and a federal. You only file a federal. Of course, we have a higher sales tax. It's almost 10%, but, Anyway, so hopefully that makes some sense and that helps. Okay, you have your work cut out for you between now and the next class. I want you to start working on your ledgers. I want you to start working on your budgets. Start filling out the forms. If you want the spreadsheet, okay, I will send you this file, and it will have in it the ledger blank, so you can print out more of those if you want. It'll have a blank of the spreadsheet. It'll also have the one that calculates, okay? All right, now, we do need to, if we're going to be asking questions and comments, we can raise. Do you guys have things you want to ask or comments you want to make?
Anybody who shops at Publix and you have, like, you're signed up with them to get discounts, digital coupons and stuff, they save your receipts online. You can access them and go back 3 months or whatever. I just checked my app. So that'll help.
That's kind of cool. Excuse me, and I shop a lot there and I didn't even know about the app. So much for that. All right, anyway. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, bring it over to Jana. Steve?
Okay, my question is, for my situation, how I just moved here, I've been staying with Lisa, so I don't really have any rent, but I want to start, like, knowing for the future. So how...
Okay, so what you do, good question. She said, well, if I'm not already doing these things, right, how do I plan for them? Well, do the research and say, okay, the size apartment that you need, find out what they generally run. Does it run 500, 800, 1,500, whatever it is? Figure out what it runs for the size apartment you want. Figure out what the utilities tend to be in the complex or where, in the area, and start putting that in your budget and saying, okay, how much do I need to make if now I'm paying this much rent and this much utilities and this much? You can find those things out. And if you ask us, we can help you with that. Okay, because at least for this area. Anybody watching this who doesn't live here, it will be a little tougher for us to help you where you live, but here we can definitely help you. Okay, Sarah Beth?
So this may be just a clarifying question. So I have a lot of things that come out. It's not just a simple gross versus net, because I have a lot of things that come out of my paycheck before taxes get taken out, and then taxes get taken out. So it's a little bit more complicated. So
You can put just a real number in there.
I've just been doing what I get, the net, because I already know everything that's going on over there. I'm just not worrying about taxes. That's already figured out, and I just go with what the net I get. Is that?
That's fine. Right? The budget has to be based on the amount of money you actually have available to spend. Okay, now, here's the challenge, though. If you don't get paid every week, well, if you get paid every week, you need to realize that there are 4.333333 weeks in a month. Okay? So that's why just taking your weekly paycheck and doing it times 4 is not going to give you the right number. All right? There's 4.3333. It's a 4 1/3 weeks in a month. All right? And so if you get paid every 2 weeks, you're still not getting an accurate number because you're going to be short a little bit. You're actually going to have more income coming in than you're budgeting for because you get paid on average more than just twice a month. It kind of works out. In the 5-week month, sometimes you get 3 checks that month, sometimes you only get 2. So it really is going to depend on, if you know that your net is pretty much the same most weeks, multiply that out for the year and divide it by 12. Okay?
Okay, so
if you get 26 checks a year, because you get paid every other week, all right? Multiply that out times 26 and divide it by 12. If you get paid every week, multiply it out and divide it by 12, okay? How often you get paid, how many checks you get in a year, divided by 12. That'll get you the closest number. If you consistently get the same amount every check and you get paid every week, take that amount, multiply it by 52. If you get paid every other week, multiply it by 26. All right? And then divide it by 12. And then you'll know that's what you get a month. Because remember, we're making monthly budgets here. Okay? But I learned that mistake a long time ago when I first started teaching these kind of things, that there are 4.3. And not just 3, you got to put a whole bunch of 3s to get it really accurate if you want to get it down to the dollars and cents. Okay, 4.3 and a bunch of 3s. So anything that you want to multiply out, that's from monthly, from a weekly, whatever. Remember that's how many weeks are in the month. All right, so if you know how much you make a week, take that and multiply it by 4.33333. All right, and that will do it. The more easy way, in my opinion, is just multiply it times 52 and divide by 12. That'll get you the exact number. All right? Of course, if your check isn't always the same because you get overtime, you get this and that, do it on a conservative basis. Take an average basic check, a normal check, and make your budget on it. All extra money is wonderful and bonus. When you do your budgets, be conservative. That means overestimate expenses, underestimate income, not the other way around. Don't be overly optimistic on your income, knowing I'm going to have all this overtime, blah, 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 and then you don't get it. Okay? Overestimate. If you're not sure how much, guess a little bit larger on an expense. Well, I think we spend $100 a week on food. I'm not really sure, so maybe I'll budget 110. Well, then when I do the ready, fire, aim, when I get to the aim part, I'll look back and say, actually, I did spend 400. Well, actually, I spent 450. And you make your adjustment when you see what you really are doing. Okay? And we'll talk about how to use these budgets next time and how to plan forward and those mechanics. Today is all about giving you the beginnings of how to gather the information necessary. Now, some of you won't be able to do that completely, especially all you cash spenders, until you spend a month tracking your spending. But at least you have an understanding of what we're doing, and starting immediately, you will start ledger tracking all your spending, okay? All right, what else do you have, Kathy?
2 questions. So I have done cash and debit. Mm-hmm. So is it better for me this month going forward, just do all cash?
Well, no, just look, if you do a significant amount of cash, you're not going to have that accurate in understanding what you've been doing. You can still guess and make your budget based on your guess, but going forward, you need to just track everything you do. Okay. And by the way, when I say track everything, I don't care what you use, plastic, check, or whatever. Every time you walk in and out of any place that you spend money, even if it's online, write it on the ledger right when you do it. And it doesn't matter how you did. You don't have to write down it was on the credit card, it was cash. Just, write down what you did. Okay?
The other question, if you have continuing education or licenses, you just
Same thing.
Add it to this thing?
Right, licenses and things that you have to renew on an annual basis or whatever it is that cost you money, that kind of thing, cost average it over the month, or you'll just put it into that month's budget. Like you'll know that you're gonna have more expense that month because something comes up only then, once a year, okay? If it's something small, under $50 or less, you may just not even worry about it and leave it under the miscellaneous. If it's something that's going to be more significant, you may want to cost average that over the month. You don't need to cost average $6 a month for something that's $70, okay? But you may want to cost average something that's $10 or $15 a month. That's going to end up being $150, $200 for the year. Just to make sure your budget, especially when your budget's tight. When you get your budget where it's going pretty good and now you're actually putting stuff into savings, emergency funds, and other things we're going to talk about, well, then you probably don't have to be quite worried about averaging out something that's once a year that's not a big deal, okay? But some of you are paying things like insurance that only gets paid quarterly or every 6 months. Those can be big, okay? Those could be a few $100s or more. And so those are things that you may want to start putting money aside for so you're ready for it when it hits. By the way, I didn't mention this, but you're also going to want to be planning for the things that you know are going to need to be replaced. You know that the refrigerator's doing okay, but not so okay. So you're probably going to need a new one in 6 months or a year. You know that the car is kind of good for another year or two, but maybe not much more. You know that, what about tires as part of maintenance? These things can be expensive. Start planning for things you know are coming, that money needs to be put aside for so you have it when you get there. Okay? We'll talk more about that next time. Any other comments or questions? I hope that was good. Was this okay? All right? All right. So with that, the Money Mastery class is going to close, and I look forward to meeting with you guys again next week.